We're dealing tonight with chapter 12 of your Erroneous Zones, probably the most remarkable chapter in any book that I have ever read, because it's a chapter that creates a mental picture by using words, a picture of the kind of person that every one of us has always been from the time of our creation. It's not just the kind of person that you can be, it's the kind of person that you already are. This mental picture is not of a person who is of the earth or a purely three-dimensional person, but of a fourth-dimensional or spiritual person, a Jonathan Livingston seagull kind of person, not just one of the flock, because the flock does not act like this person. And you will hear it. It's a remarkable chapter. Let me urge you to take it to yourself, this book, because we will not be able to go into all of the things that it says about you. We're going to be talking about you, immediate possibilities that exist for you. Sunday evening again, I was watching that beautiful documentary by National Geographic entitled The Incredible Machine. Have you seen it? The Incredible Machine, meaning this physical organism that you call your body. This beautiful machine that you run around in all day, that takes you to these wonderful places and connects you with them and permits you to see and to make contact with the world around you. And if you have seen The Incredible Machine, and your spirit had to soar. You had to marvel at the unlimited, this exquisite intelligence that is in you at this very moment, doing such remarkable things in the chemistry of your being and of your body without any effort on your part. Did you know that our intestines are about 30,000 times smarter than we are? If we could run our business like our insides do. Just a thought. William Shakespeare said, "What a piece of work man is, how noble in reason, how infinite in faculty, in form and moving, how express and admirable, in action, how like an angel, in apprehensions, how like a god. The beauty of the world, the paragon of animals." And that's what you are. And yet this physical structure that you are, this purely three-dimensional person that you and I have been, does not really represent us. It misrepresents us, because this is our launching pad only. It is from this point that we consciously begin to take charge and to make the changes that are ours to make. Creation has already taken place in us. The perfection is there, but it needs our cooperation to call it forth into the fullness of its expression. And this perfect intelligence must begin to see the erroneous zones of thinking that we have acquired and begin to exclude them and to replace them with the truth about ourselves. Our body is constantly doing this. At any moment, your body, the superintelligence that is there, if it discovers that something has disrepaired itself, it immediately begins to make a correction. But why do you and I, who are beings of the mind, why do we not do this with our thought process? Why do we take into ourselves ideas and concepts and reactions to life that are so completely erroneous and yet cling to them and to defend them even to the point that they bring destruction upon ourselves? Has that never challenged your imagination to wonder why that in our great intelligence we act so ignorantly by defending the very things that bring about our self-destruct? Abraham Maslow said, Freud's picture of man was clearly unsuitable, leaving out as it did his aspirations, his realizable hopes, his godlike qualities. And Freud, as you probably know, was of that school of thought that said that we were really progressing from something, from the slime of the ocean. But another great mind, one who was of the fourth dimension, Carl Jung, said that we are moving towards something, a destiny that is already there, a fullness that is already complete, but that must be called forth into expression consciously and deliberately, and that our days and our nights, our activities upon this earth, is merely our opportunity to become the perfect thing that already has been created within us. Neil Armstrong, who is inevitably billed as the first man who walked upon the moon, was recently giving an address, and he was going back over the intellectual, mathematical, and scientific accomplishments of man, not only in this century but in centuries past, that have made this great feat possible to put him and others on the moon and bring them safely back so that they could speak to us. And in the question period, someone said to him, what is the next most important advancement that we can expect to make? In what area? And he immediately said, character. Character. Human character. This is the area where we've made the least progress. You see, we have confused our scientific advancements with our own growth. Look back over the years, 10, 100, or 2,000, and we have grown hardly at all as a race. And if you do not believe this, spend 15 cents tonight. Get the news. And you will see the report there of how little progress we have made. Our activities toward each other would be distressing if we were going to be distressed, but we're not, because we have made a decision that we are not of this earth and of that three-dimensional order, but there is something that already exists in us that can be called forth, if not scientifically evaluated yet, can be apprehended individually and collectively by us so that it can become our experience. You see, the real scientists are always those who go beyond the science. The scientist cannot yet report of your spiritual condition because they have not evaluated it. But does that keep it from being there, and do its laws not still exist with all their power for those who will apprehend them? And in that sense, you are your own scientist, and you can discover what science has not yet discovered, and very simply so, because it is in you to be found. So, Ernest Holmes wrote, man must be created with a limitless freedom and let alone to discover himself. On the road to self-discovery, he must be subject to the law of reality. And if in ignorance he violates the law, he must therefore suffer. This is not, however, because any divine decree ordains suffering, but simply because it is the necessity of the case. If in our growth we touch a hot stove, we will be burned, and if we leave it there, and that sizzling sound that we hear will be our finger becoming crisp. And we've touched lots of different kinds of hot stoves and did not learn to pull our hand back, haven't we? And then go back and touch it again. And this indicates that there is something wrong in the mechanism. We've got an erroneous zone, something that does not know where pain comes from. And all kinds of pain, whether it be physical, psychological, or emotional, are merely signals telling you that something is wrong, that there is something that needs to be evaluated, examined, and that a new determination needs to be made, a new course of direction and interactivity. You're a mental being. And if there is an error in consciousness, it can be apprehended and eliminated. And our lesson tonight is a mental portrait of a person who has eliminated all erroneous zones. It is possible to be free from almost all self-destructive behavior. It's not a mythological concept at all. It's a very real possibility. And men and women of every age have been accomplishing it, and not very far from where you're seated now. Maybe even right where you are is such a person. This requires conscious and deliberate activity. This is not for children. are for the weak-hearted. This requires a commitment beyond any commitment that we have made until this time. And if you're willing to go to work on yourself, you will see the development of an individual who is unlike the majority of people and distinguished by all kinds of creative capacities. You have an unlimited possibility now, not at some future time. Nothing exists then that does not exist now for you. Now, people free from erroneous zones are different from run-of-the-mill individuals. Incidentally, there's a book that might be interesting to some of you advanced students. It's called The Fourth Way. It's by P.D. Uspensky. It's called The Fourth Way because it is the way into the fourth dimension. And it gives deep insights into some of our erroneous zones and what to do about them, the kind of consciousness that one must develop in order to become free, to become disciples. Did you know that the original disciples of Jesus were not people that fell down on their knees and worshiped him every time he took a drink of water? Not at all. He was a master teacher teaching people how to put on the experience of a new kind of beingness that he had, that others before him had also experienced, at least in some degree. And he was saying, this experience that I have, you can have. And from it, even greater things can become your own experience. You see, he was never the exception, but the example. Tonight I was wondering, who was it for the first time that set him up as the exception? I wonder when that occurred. We probably will never know. Well, we're talking about fourth dimensional type people, a new kind of human being who is emerging by making conscious effort. And how can you tell them when you run into someone like this? Well, if you'll watch them and listen to them, here are some of the things that you will discover about such people. First and most obviously, you will see that people who are of this dimension of life like virtually everything about life. They're people who are comfortable doing just about anything and who waste no time in complaining. They're enthusiastic about their days and their nights. They like picnics and movies and books and sports and concerts and cities and farms and mountains and deserts. Whatever's going on, they're for it. They're hardly ever against it if it is of the natural order of life. If it rains, they like it. If it's hot, they dig it. Whatever. Now, these are not people who pretend to enjoy. They actually do. And if you ask them what they don't like, they're hard-pressed to come up with an honest answer. Because they're so accustomed, so turned on to liking, to enjoying, to evaluating, to examining, and to the experiencing of that which is taking place around them. And such annoyances as disease and droughts, mosquitoes, floods, they may not warmly embrace them, but they're not going to get all upset about them. Healthy, fulfilled people are free from guilt. And these are people that are free from guilt and the attendant anxiety that goes with using their moments to become immobilized through guilt. Now, there are people that can very easily, more than any other group of people on this earth, they can admit to you their mistakes and laugh and say, I'm sorry. And they can make a vow to avoid repeating certain behavior patterns that are counterproductive in any way. But you're not going to get them to waste any time wishing that they hadn't done something. They're not going to be looking back at their past and say, I wish that hadn't happened to me. Because they will say, it took everything it took to bring me here, to awaken me. Those experiences I could not change and I would not. Now, don't try to get me to go through it again because I don't want any more of that. Let's get on with our business. But you can't get them to feel bad about their past or to feel guilty about the flaws that still exist. You simply cannot do it. They see that feeling bad only reinforces a poor self-image, and that learning from the past is far superior than suffering about things that have happened. And most people never learn from their past at all. They only suffer and feel guilty. But not this group of people. You'll never see them manipulating other people through fear or guilt. They'll help others to relieve their guilt, but they do not want them to experience it. There's another thing that you will marvel about them. They are non-worriers. You can't get them to worry about anything. There's no value in worrying, in spite of what your mother taught you. There is absolutely no value in worrying, except if you like to produce the conditions that you're worried about, then keep doing it, and you will create this fantastic power of your mind. If you worry about a thing, in time, it will bring it to you. But they're unwilling to spend these fantastic present moments agonizing about things in the future over which they have no control. These are people who are not threatened by the unknown. As a matter of fact, they seek out experiences that they've never had before. I know one fellow that drove 500 miles one time just to be in a hurricane. He never had been in one. And it was exciting. The excitement of unknown experiences. These people don't plan for a future event and then let long periods of inactivity elapse as they wait that event, like planning for a vacation next summer in the Bahamas, but not doing anything this Christmas because of next year in the Bahamas, and saving all your money for the Bahamas, and really thinking about the Bahamas. Do you want to know a way to absolutely be miserable when you get to the Bahamas? Just keep dreaming about the Bahamas and let each present moment pass, because you're really going to let it all hang out when you get to the Bahamas. But no real joy until then. You can't get these people caught up in that. They'll make their reservations for next July with the travel agent and then forget it until July. But right now is what they're caught up in. What's going on in this moment? These people are strikingly independent. They may have a strong love and devotion for their family, but they see independence as superior to dependence in all relationships. And they treasure their own freedom. And these are people that are very difficult for unhealthy, self-willed people to get to love them, because these people are adamant about their freedom. Someone who clings and tries to possess and own simply cannot enter into a long-range activity with this kind of person, because before you know it, they have disappeared. You begin to put strings on them and try to bind those moments yet to come, and watch what happens. They simply cannot stand that kind of a relationship. Now, am I saying that they never get married? Of course they do. But it is that freedom, each giving the other room to be and to express and to become and to grow. You start leaning on them and they will disappear. Now, you'll find an uncommon absence of approval seeking in these happy individuals. They are unusually free from seeking the opinions of others, and in a very strange and delightful way, because they don't seek approval, and they're not constantly trying to get other people to love them. They have more approval and more love than anybody else. It's absolutely sickening the way it turns out. They do what they do because something in them requires an excellence. But you do not have to recognize that excellence. But you will, because you must, because the same thing is trying to happen inside you. They're not oblivious to applause and approval. They just don't seem to need it. And when it comes, they can handle it because they know where the values are and where the source is. Now, these people are not cocktail partiers. nor do they engage in small talk because it's the polite thing to do. You can't get them pinned down for 10 minutes in those inane conversations about things that do not matter. You can't. And if you've been in this way of thinking for a period of time and then go to one of those parties where much of the evening is spent on, you know what I'm talking about? It's almost unbearable. And you just have to go tearing out that door for the fresh air that's outside. These are people who know how to laugh at themselves, at the ludicrous things that happen in their lives. Remember last week we talked about this? They find humor in virtually all situations. But they don't laugh at people. They laugh with them. Never will they laugh at someone to put that person down. But they take the seriousness out of life. If you see somebody that always has that taunt expression around their mouth, someone that you know has not smiled since 1953, you know that you're not looking at a fourth-dimensional person. These are people who accept themselves without complaint. It doesn't make any difference to them whether they're tall or short. They've already made their peace with that. It's okay to be tall or short, whichever it is. And if their hair is thin or if they have a lot of it, so what? They like themselves. They love themselves. And they accept themselves as they are. Because these outer things, that's not where the value lies. It's in the unfolding, these waves of growth and of changingness inside themselves. This is where the excitement is. They appreciate the natural world, the love of being outdoors, under the sky, under the stars. They love mountains and sunsets, bugs. And yet, if you take them to the Christmas party, they're the ones who have the most fun of all. You know that for several years now we've had 2 annual banquets a year, and some 600 to 700 of us usually attend. And the musicians who have played in the past have not known us. And they've been absolutely astonished. Usually they think for a little while that we're all drunk. Because how can sober people be enjoying themselves that much? But you see, this is a new wine, a new spirit, a new dimension of life and of vitality. Did you know that every moment of your life should be an exciting experience? Every exquisite moment has a value for you. Did you know that? It does. And these are the people who are finding more of these moments than any other that you know. Now, they have an insight into the behavior of others. And what seems to be complex and undecipherable to some people, to them is as clear and understandable as reading the newspaper. The problems that immobilize many other people are often viewed by this group as only minor annoyances, things to be resolved as quickly as possible. They just don't take things all that seriously. And yet they know what's going on in the world around them, and they can recognize immediately what other people are attempting to do to them. In a business situation, they will know before it shapes up what the opposition, what the strategy is, and they'll know exactly how to cope with it. It is the most remarkable thing. They can shrug and ignore while others are angered and perplexed and immobilized and hurt because they are dealing with a new set of principles and of values. They are incapable of stereotyping other people. For example, they often don't even notice the physical differences in others, including racial, ethnic, size, and sexual. They just don't. They're not surface people judging others by their looks or by their pure physical beauty. They evaluate you on the basis of where you're coming from inside yourself, and they know where you're coming from inside yourself. To many people, this group appear to be hedonistic and selfish, meaning that they're devoted to personal pleasure. This personal pleasure is not what they're seeking. They just experience it all the time. They just don't know how to not experience being alive and enjoying being alive. Now, I'm talking about you. This is how you were created, and some people are living this way right now, and they're here, right where we are. These are not sickly people. They don't believe in being immobilized by colds and headaches. Now, they have them from time to time, but they are not immobilized by a cold or a headache. There was a time in my life when I used to try to catch the flu. Oh, I did. I worked hard at catching the flu. I never caught it. But I wanted to catch the flu very much. You see, I really didn't know what it was. So that I would not have to go out and enjoy my life. Well, I really wasn't enjoying it very much. But I needed something to keep me home, safely, protected from my environment. I'll bet you there's no one here that understands what I'm talking about. Well, I decided to change all that. After I changed it, I began to get the flu. Changing it didn't give me the flu. There was some kind of a value there, of a law. But once you have it, it doesn't make any difference. Because that kind of a person can have the worst case of flu that you've ever seen in your life, and unless you spot their runny nose, you probably won't even notice it. Because they have taken away the power of that condition to control their mind and their mood. They're no longer the purely physical person. They're above that, and they can act out the role of what they are inside themselves. And they've learned that they have the ability to rid themselves of such maladies. Fantastic. Another hallmark of these fully functioning individuals is honesty. They're not evasive with their responses, and they don't really lie about anything. Try to get one of them to cover up for you on the job. Or if it happens to be a spouse, try to get that spouse to lie to the boss when he calls and you don't have the flu. You simply can't do it. They won't do it. They won't lie for you because they won't lie for themselves. They will not distort by using words that are not correct to protect themselves or any other person. And these are people who don't blame. They refuse to ascribe responsibility to others for what they are. And similarly, they will not blame themselves for what they are at the moment. There's no guilt to be experienced in them. They're doers, and they're people that just really get on with the business of being alive, moment by moment. It's the most exciting group of people that you can possibly imagine being with. There's a dynamic that takes place in the presence of one such person, and you get 2 or 3 or 4 of them together, and the power will just sweep you right up and take you along, because these are people of another dimension that is in motion, in movement. And you can see it in them because they're always people with exceptionally high energy levels. They seem to require less sleep, and yet they're always excited about what's happening, always turned on, maybe only 3 or 4 hours sleep in a long period of time, but they're capable of continuing to function and being fully alert. They can muster tremendous surges of energy for completing a task because they choose to be involved in it in a very loving way. They love their lives. And Dyer says that their energy level is not supernatural. Well, I think it's supernatural. It is natural, but it comes from a super level. You see, your spiritual level is natural, but it is the super, the fourth dimensional level. And when you see these people in action, you will know that the energy that they are experiencing is not coming from just their third dimensional or human self or psyche. They don't know how to be bored. If something is causing them to lose their attention, they will quickly give that thing up and move forward into the next exciting experience. There's always something to be experienced, to be accomplished, to be done. They are aggressively curious. They never know enough, and they search for more and more, and they're always excited in the areas of truth. You see, they know that they're not a finished product yet. Oh, they are in transition. They are beings in transition. And no matter how much they know, there's something else yet to be learned right now. Some new transforming idea, some new transforming emotion that can change this moment, this very present moment, into a new inner experience inside themselves. Fantastic concept. They never feel or act superior, showing off their merit badges for others to applaud. And you know why that they're never snobbish or superior? Because they never feel that way. They do not know that they are. Do you think that Jonathan Livingston Seagull was a snob who said, "I am better than the other birds"? It never occurred to him. As a matter of fact, he knew that every other gull in the flock could do anything that he had done if that bird would only listen to him for a while and practice. And that's what he was trying to tell them. He was not saying, "I am a superior one, that I'm only one of a kind." He was saying, we're all this way. Can't you see it? Can't you hear it? Won't you put on these exciting concepts that are mine? And these people are that way. So there's no snobbishness, no sense of superiority, none of that in them at all. And they're not afraid to talk to a waitress or to ask a dentist, "How does it feel to have your hand in a patient's mouth all day long?" You know, things like that are just really, they wonder about those things. They're not afraid to fail, and therefore they will try anything just because it's fun. And they never fear having to explain themselves. You will never ever hear one of them stopping and pausing along the way to have you know exactly why they did what they did so that they will have your approval. They could care less whether they have your approval or not. They did it because they had to do it. And they know that you either understand why they did it or that they could explain for an hour and a half and you wouldn't understand at all. You see, if you ever have to explain anything to someone, you can't. And to the people who understand, you don't have to explain anyhow. They simply know why and how you did it. They never choose anger in any situation. They've learned that this is a self-defeating, juvenile reaction to life. They never choose anger. They have learned that others are the way they are. They accept them the way they are. And rather than get into whatever it is that they're going to get into, they just turn and walk away and go about their own business. They never get into those experiences anymore because they're self-defeating. Now, these individuals display a remarkable lack of defensiveness. They're never on the defensive, trying to play little games to impress others and to explain themselves. They're not arguers or hot-headed debaters. They simply state their views and listen to others and recognize the futility of trying to convince another person against their will. Their values are not local. By that I mean that they do not identify with the family, with the neighborhood, the community, the ethnic group from which they came, the city, the state, or the country. As a matter of fact, all attempts by the family and that ethnic group to control them is excruciatingly painful to them. They've had to escape that kind of labeling, and therefore they never turn and put it on another person. The lines drawn by men to describe how one should be affiliated is not the way they act and think at all. They transcend traditional boundaries, which often causes others to label them as rebels or even traitors when they're not rebels at all. We're not talking about rebels. We're not talking about people who go out with causes. These people don't have those kinds of causes. There's only one cause that's active in their lives. and that's their own growth. They may not even call it spiritual growth. They may not know that word yet, but they're in the process of demonstrating a different climate inside themselves and in all of their relationships. They have no heroes and no idols. They place no one above themselves in the very same way that they place themselves above no one else. They see us all in the very same way. And they do not demand justice at every turn. Have you noticed how that the average normal person is always calling for justice? Have you noticed that? Justice. Justice equal for all. These people could care less. You see, when someone else has more privileges, they see that as a benefit to that person rather than as a reason for being unhappy. And if someone else has got a better deal than they do, they say, that is absolutely fantastic. I'm so glad you've got a better deal. They don't go to the president of the company and say, well, I've been here for 14 years, and George has only been here for 12, and he got a raise. They think how marvelous it is for George, and I'm going to get mine in time. When playing an opponent, they want that opponent to do very well, rather than wishing a poor performance in order to win by default. They want the people around them to experience the very best in life. And so, if they win, they want it to be through a better effort on their part, not a worse effort on their opponent's part. Can you evaluate the difference there? Tremendous difference. They do not insist that everyone be equally endowed with happiness or equality. They want you to have the very best that you can, even if it is more than others have. And I think that's a fantastic consciousness. Most significantly, these are people who love themselves, enjoy themselves, appreciate themselves, can actually, upon signal, look in a mirror like you will probably do tonight when you go home before you go to bed while you're brushing your teeth. When you get rid of the toothpaste, and with that big smile, you will look at yourself and say, gosh, I love you. Have you done that lately? If you're not a fourth dimensional person, you will swallow that toothpaste and gag in the process. But they appreciate what they are doing with their lives. And yet it is not an egotistical thing. It is a reasonable and pure evaluation of themselves for what they are in life. They're motivated by a desire to grow, and they always treat themselves well when given the option. But they treat others just as well as they treat themselves, especially friends and members of the family. They do not take the better or the larger slice or the larger portion. As a matter of fact, that while they treat themselves well, they will give you first choice and call it a blessing when they do. And if they make a mistake, they will admit it. You see, these people are not problem-free people. Today I was talking to a beautiful, beautiful woman who has not been around here very long, but who is exactly the way I'm describing. And she was telling me, and her sister was here for the first time today, and her sister came for one reason. You know what it was? She said, I have beheld this remarkable change in my sister. I cannot understand her. She is a new kind of person. And whatever it is that she has, I want to touch it. And the sister that I'm talking about, who is here, was telling me. She said, I don't have less problems than I had before. Most of the problems still seem to be there, but I am different, and I'm handling them differently. And in the process of time, these problems will disappear. I probably will always have problems, but a powerful thing has happened to me because I can function well with my problems. You see, they've learned that you don't have to be problem-free to be happy and alive and turned on. As a matter of fact, some of your most valid and beautiful moments are when you get up off yourself and go out into the experience of confronting the problem situation that exists, and that's when the power really begins to come. These are people that no longer feel sorry for themselves, and if they slip and fall, they do not lie there and whine because they have fallen. They get up and go forth with a mighty movement of energy to experience the next thing that life will bring them. In the closing pages of his book, Dyer gives a quote from Reader's Digest, and I'll read it to you. "Nothing on earth renders happiness less approachable than trying to find it." Historian Will Durant described how he looked for happiness in knowledge and found only disillusionment. He then sought happiness in travel and found weariness. He sought happiness in wealth and found discord and worry. He looked for happiness in his writing and became fatigued. And one day in his search, he saw a woman waiting in a tiny car with a sleeping child in her arms. And in a little while, a man descended from a train and came over and gently kissed the woman, and then kissed the baby, very softly, so as not to awaken the sleeping child. The family drove off and left Durant with a stunning realization of the real nature of happiness. You see, in that moment, he discovered that every normal function of life holds some delight. Every normal function of your life, every experience of your life holds some delightful awakening moment, some exquisite measure that your spirit can pick up on if you will separate yourself from the past and the future and become what you already are. You are an exquisite creation, designed superbly and already designated to experience the best. Yes, you are. From Theologica Germanica, I read to you the statement that was written several hundred years ago. "As soon as a man turneth himself in spirit, and with his whole heart and mind entereth into the mind of God, which is above time, is in the now, all that he ever hath lost is restored to him. And if a man were to do this 1,000 times a day, each time a fresh and real reunion would take place. For he who hath attained thereto asketh nothing further. For he hath found the kingdom of heaven and eternal life on earth." Who is that person? You. That which you seek will not come to you. It must come from you through a concentrated and controlled activity of your own consciousness. A new commitment. A commitment, though, that's intelligently based upon the certainty of what you already are, that you want to bring forth into the fullness of its expression. You're not just a psychological being filled with erroneous zones. That is correct. Freud was wrong about you, but you are a remarkable spiritual being. And you can eliminate your erroneous zones and put on that super beingness and the super joy and happiness that is your birthright. So it is.
This concludes the final tape in this series entitled Freedom from Your Erroneous Zones by Jack Boland.